Hey there, Hawk. So, game changer here. Oh, I feel like I'm assessing royalty here. So let's have a little scanny. So first glance is spawn zones absolutely excellent, working really, really well. You obviously must have an extra mind to me as well. I'm noticing. So that's. Or have you? You've placed him really, really well. I was just thinking to myself, you know what? How would I take you out? And I tell you what, how you're setting up is quite difficult. There's not really a particular easy spot. I mean, you could kind of think, well, you know what, where that peacemaker is there, if you spawned, you'd actually be under it. That might give you a way in, but you are picked up, obviously, by that one. So I wonder if that's what your thinking is. If not, obviously, yeah, it should work well. You've got heavy turret there, which makes it quite difficult. Because the other thing you kind of think of, well, you know what, my aim's always to take out the war factory, but you've got a nice mine placement there, which kind of because you'd want to start here, wouldn't you? You'd want to come in at that war factory there, just trying to keep out of range of the salvo. But then equally, peacemakers picking you up rather nicely, and to double that up, the salvo as well. And you can't run away from a salvo, so it's not like you can bait one. So quite like what's going on there. You can't obviously come up and over. I always find this base as well quite off-putting. I think it was well worth paying for the upgrade because you know, the actual kind of fire effect that's travelling along often looks like sort of tracer fire and kind of can be a bit off-putting, so quite good. So the second thing I thought, well, maybe I could spawn a tank here and run that along, obviously, your baseline, and obviously that would bait the peacemaker. And I think as long as you kept out of way of the heavy cannon, sort of took it back and forth, you could maybe get away with that, but it would be quite difficult and quite a bit of skill. I think you've certainly picked most of that up with the mine anyway. So yeah, quite nice technique. And I think, you know, anybody trying to spawn on that zone's going to come into a pretty bad day. So that's naturally going to push people coming in from here. And there again, you're covering quite well. You've obviously got the mines in the obvious sort of places. It just feels like you've got more mines than you bloody should have. So either you have got an extra mine somewhere, or you're just placing them better, or the fact that your base is pushed into this corner, which obviously does cause people problems. I mean, I wonder if when you watch your videos, people do try and spawn in that side and not realise they back themselves into a corner and feel a whole world of pain. I like the fact that as well you're recognising that the long distance firepower of the HIMARS obviously causes bother. You know, for most turrets except salvo, so I'm sure that's pretty much why you've adapted to the salvo and the peacemaker. I've pretty much got the same myself, and the fact you've got a couple of high-powered machine guns in there as well. Obviously, although they're outranged, it does cause bother, and again they're protected somewhat by the peacemaker. Quite like the fact that of overlap as well. It seems that whatever turret that you're going for, another one's going to kind of be in your way. Because I kind of think, you know what, maybe you're vulnerable from this side here, and then obviously take this machine gun out, and that's your way in. But again, that poses difficulty on this side. I mean, the only way I could think of even starting to gnaw away at you, and that would be difficult, would again probably use this baseline here, send a tank along toward that sort of peacemaker. That would distract both the machine gun and the peacemaker, and then I can start to get in, at least on this side here. Because that's the problem. Where do you start? You know, it is quite nicely set up. I'll tell you what's surprising, mate, is that your defense stats are lower. 37%, I think I noticed. If your base has been like this or using this format for some time, I'd expect a higher sort of defense stat. It could be because of your level. People are naturally choosing, you know, higher powered attacks. You know, I don't know how you stand up to, for example, if I brought in the spooky and things along that sort of line, how does that hold up? I mean, obviously you've got modicums of snipers in there. You've got, what have you got in your tanks? Can't quite tell you there. Am I spotting a Zeus? Yeah, so you've got quite good air cover, I dare say, anyway. So that's obviously going to work well. Um, you know what, mate? I think that's a really good tough base. I think if I saw that, either if I went for it, I'm probably going to regret I did, or you're probably going to skip past it, really, aren't you? You'd have to have some attack really to make some inroads with that. I dare say it's only going to be a spooky first or something along that sort of line. That's going to sort of pose any bother. Maybe you could get in there with an airstrike, but you're probably not going to see that again, are you? No, very, very good, mate. Very, very good. Interesting to ask you what your defence is like. I mean, you've got three flat like I have, and two which are powered up. So it begs the question, when they do bring on this new plane, is any defence gonna work? I mean, is it gonna? Obviously, they've taken the air support off the heavy cannon, haven't they? The fact it no longer works on fixed wing, poses quite an interesting dilemma for all of us going forward. So you know what, I think you've got probably most bases covered. I quite like what you've done, mate. You have to let me know what it's working like, and seeing if this is a new strategy you're coming up with, because it would be quite interesting. I have tried a couple of bases where I've done similar into this corner, but probably never really had the firepower. Where nowadays with the bigger guns, it probably is more of a strategy and something that could work well. So yeah, well done, mate. Cheers.